Good morning, Bravo bosses, and welcome to I Take Bravo Very Seriously with me, your host, Dana. Today I'm joined by a very special guest. You may know him from half of his podcast, Bravo Wear Black. It's Aaron Marcellus. Welcome to I Take Bravo Very Seriously, Aaron.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel honored. I feel like, oh my God, this is so special.
It is special because I was on your podcast as well, and I just feel like we watch a lot of the same stuff. We
Hmm.
have a lot in common. We are both members of the Hurrdat Media family, which, as you said on your podcast,
Yes.
makes us brother and sister. You know,
Siblings.
siblings by birth. And I love that for us.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for having me. Unfortunately, Kaya could not make it, guys, but I talked to Dana and we're gonna try to do another collab because there's so many good Bravo shows to cover, especially
Hmm.
once Beverly Hills comes back. So I'm excited
Yes.
to talk that.
I can't believe that OC is ending though. Like when I found out last week that this week is the finale episode, I was really surprised. So,
What?
yeah, did you know?
I didn't like I'm
Yeah.
just now hearing about this. I feel like we haven't even hit all the places on the map. Like,
We were
then they
going on a
have
worldwide trip.
four. Yeah, I think when the trailer came out, they had like 4 to 5 trips that we've seen. And
You're right.
now it feels like we only have like maybe two.
Hmm. Well, I don't know if anything was cut, but I know we're getting that John Jansen appearance in that finale episode. And then I don't know how many parts of the reunion we'll have. Definitely at least two, maybe three. But I've really enjoyed this season, and I'm enjoying the fact that we have four Bravo shows on. And what's interesting about it is like, we had that drought, right? We had that horrifying drought over the summer where all we had was New Jersey and it just wasn't good. And we needed to be fed. And now we're full. But I love that we also sort of get the choice now where I'm like, New York, meh. Potomac, okay. Okay, but I don't need to. And so I'm sort of focusing on Salt Lake City and OC, but I just like that we sort of get the choice now because there's just so much Bravo on that
Yes.
there's room for choice. And Potomac is getting good again. So, as I'm sure you know, and I'm sure you appreciate, last season was just such a dumpster fire. And I wasn't sure if we could come back because that sort of always just happens. Like, Potomac was one of my all time favorites, but I feel like once a
Mhm.
Bravo show sort of starts to go down the crapper, we either forget about it, we forget it ever existed, we forget we wanted it in the first place. So, it's hard to come back from, and not every show has been able to do it, but I think Potomac has. So I'm very curious your thoughts on last season, Potomac's future this season so far, what your thoughts
Yeah.
are on only having half a green-eyed bandit and no cry angle. Just like what are your general overall thoughts on all things Potomac?
Like I will say net last season, like you said, was very rough for me. And it's not so much that I forgot about it. I think it was one of those things where I remembered. I just was not looking forward to seeing it. And then we got to the reunions, and I just felt like the reunion was just so like it was just so heavy.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it felt.
Yeah.
Because you could feel the tension. The tension was very thick between Gizelle and Candace, and I understand they were on the outs, but it was just so much. And this season, if it seems like a breath of fresh air, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
despite some unfortunate news about Karen Huger, but it's very interesting. I like that. I kind of like that we're not getting Robin this season, so Giselle just has herself.
Mm-hmm. I mean, did you like Robin in general in the past few seasons? Is she
Um,
someone that you enjoyed?
I will say prior to the season before this one, I wasn't a huge Robin fan. But last season I was here for Robin. And it was
Mm-hmm.
very strange because it's like as soon as I'm here for Robin, everybody's like, I want her off the show.
Really? Do you think you
That's
started
how I
it?
felt. Maybe I did. Maybe I did. Because last season everybody was not feeling Robin. Like I'm not gonna say everybody, but a good amount of people were like, "Oh, she's kind of boring. She's not really bringing anything to the show." But I kind of felt like she was.
I
I
think
didn't
people
have a
were also
problem with
mad at
her.
her about the whole keeping a secret about the
Oh
only
yeah,
one thing and doing it behind the paywall. So I think that there was just like a portion
yeah.
of the fandom that was mad at her. And then Robin is also just generally a lazy person in general, right? So it's hard for her to get out of bed. So I think maybe she wasn't bringing a lot last season because she was just not bringing a lot to her own life. She's not motivated, sorry, that's the better term, that she even brought up herself, where it's sort of difficult for her to like get up and do things. And I think
Mhm.
she wasn't really getting up and doing things for the show either. But at the same time, I don't correct or don't quote me on this because I could be wrong, but I think Potomac has the longest standing original Housewives cast that exists, I guess until now, because they had those core four for such a long time. So it's I thought it would be weird, but I don't notice it. And I'm actually like proud of Gizelle in like a weird way where I'm like, look at you, girl, look at you run by yourself. Like, look at
I
you go.
am. I am.
I
And
didn't
it's
know
like
she could do it.
she's been a lot more pleasant too.
Yeah.
Like last season, I was like, oh, Giselle, like, but this season it seems like she's a bit nicer. She takes her time before she responds. She's
Mm-hmm.
apologetic. She can actually apologize, which was very shocking to me. But we're still receiving her OG antics while
Mm-hmm.
also, you know, being refreshed by like a nicer side of Giselle. So I'm
Yeah.
here for it. I was also a little bit scared about Candace leaving because I wasn't too sure how that was gonna play out.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, the additions that we have this season, I like.
I like the additions. One
Yeah.
thing on Candace, though, what I thought was interesting was why they decided to get rid of both of them when they were each other's problem. You know, it's just funny that it's like getting
Yeah.
rid of both Teresa and Melissa, and it's like you don't need to do that. But at the same time, obviously Candace is pregnant and obviously, probably wants to go through her pregnancy without the stress of being on the Housewives, but I think she still has a door open to come back. Like from what the sense that I
Oh
get from
yeah.
the Bravo universe, from Andy, I think the door is going to always be open for her. And I kind of love that. I love when Housewives come back in later seasons because sometimes it just isn't your right time, and sometimes you're a better fit at a different point in your life, or you're a better fit for the fandom at that certain point, right? There was a point in time
Mhm.
where we didn't want to see Kristen Doty on our screens, and now we live for Kristen Doty, right? So it's a different time, and so it's just sort of crazy. But like, what are your thoughts on Karen? I'm really upset about Karen because it's really hard not to compare this to Shannon Bedore because we're seeing both situations play out
Yeah.
sort of at the same time with the DUIs, and we're seeing two very different reactions. We're seeing Shannon be accountable, apologetic to most degrees. And then you have Karen being like sort of in the Erica Jane way, like, we're not talking about this for legal reasons.
Yeah.
So I don't love that. And even in this past episode, I was kind of upset where people are trying to get more out of her. And she's like, look, I'm not even going to apologize. I'm not even going to say I did anything wrong. I need you all to wait. I need you to stand behind me 100% until then. And it's so difficult because how can you expect people to stand behind you 100% when you won't even tell them what you've done? That is unreasonable.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like being in the Twilight Zone almost because I was expecting this huge apology. I was expecting
Right.
her to like um to just see more sympathy, more emotion from her. And I don't believe Karen is a bad person. I do believe that she has a good heart. I just think that maybe she's taking this court thing a bit too seriously. I don't know. Maybe she also just wants to be viewed in a certain light. And anything
I
that
think
takes
that's a big
away
part of
from
it.
that,
Hmm.
yeah, I think she has a problem with. Like we're kind of seeing on this episode with Jacqueline commenting on like her possibly being drunk during a phone call. I think this is not looking good for her image, and she doesn't like that.
Hmm.
So we're just seeing somebody that's very protective of her image. And when it comes to this, I don't think she understands that this is a bit different. This isn't like a cheating rumor or like something wild like that, or you sent back food a few times at a restaurant. Like this isn't like an Anne Hathaway situation. This is like DUI, and this isn't your first. This is your second.
Which I didn't know until this season. And I'm
Yeah.
like, wow. So you were mentioning how, image is so important to her, which makes
Mhm.
sense because she's the Grand Dame and she's the something of Surrey counties. Like she's something to them, and that's really
Yes.
important to her. But there's two images we need to think of here. There's that image, there's, the Grand Dame image, but there's the fandom image. And to the fandom, you're not looking good right now because the image that you're trying to portray is somebody who is not apologetic, is somebody who doesn't take
Mhm.
accountability, and is somebody who it's sort of hard to stand behind. So it's almost like there's contradictory images because if you think about like Shannon Bedore, she's not doing great for optics. Like stop drinking on camera,
Yeah.
stop drinking on camera. That's not good for the optics. But Karen, you know what would be good for optics is if you apologized on camera. That would be great for the optics.
I agree.
But she's not going to do that because of this. Maybe it is different, but I mean, she's being charged with so many more things than we even
But
care to
it's
think about.
not, when it comes to Shannon Bedore, I believe, like, yeah, the situations are a little bit different because Shannon Bedore has a little bit more against her, I feel, and she's also still actively drinking
Hmm.
on camera, so it's different. I don't know. Is Karen doing that? No,
I
I
think
think
she.
Karen is more like behind the scenes, like
Oh,
from what
right.
I'm,
Because she said she was taking antibiotics, so she wasn't drinking
yeah,
right then, but she is drinking regularly. So I think she is saying,
yeah,
like, yeah, it's not a big deal. It was a one-off thing. So I think in that sense, they sort of are the same because they're both continuing to drink
yeah,
and not seeing. Because I think for both of them, it's also the image of if I don't drink, people will think I'm an alcoholic, which isn't true. But I hate that that's the mentality in their
yeah.
minds because you don't
And
have to
then,
drink on camera to prove to people you're not an alcoholic. That's not
right.
let's not make that connection.
And I think people also perceive Shannon a little bit differently from Karen because Karen has the fan base. Karen's
Hmm.
whole personality is what got her that fan base. Like,
Right.
she's the type of woman that stands on business. Like, what she says, that's law, in her opinion. And it's either like you're with her or you're not. Like, and I keep bringing up Jacqueline because that's what we're seeing with her. It's like she's not with her. So Karen's done with her now.
What do
And
you
I
think?
think
Or sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was gonna say I think even with her fan base, they kind of like I'm not gonna say they're held hostage, but they just understand how Karen works and they're gonna stick beside her because I've been seeing a lot of this stuff, and you do have some people who are still trying to hold Karen accountable, and you have some people I feel that have accepted her reaction and accepted how she's gonna handle this whole thing, and they're really not taking it as serious as others.
So you're seeing people in the fandom who are on
Yeah.
Karen's side and are with Karen.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
I'm
okay.
I'm seeing people who are kind of like not necessarily defending her, but they're just not saying anything, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
And a lot of these people had a lot to say about Shannon Bedore as well.
Hmm.
So it's like I'm a big believer in holding people accountable. Like if Shannon had to stand in and then Shannon had to do it, then Karen has to do it. And it
Hmm.
would be the same for Karen. If Karen was standing in it and Shannon wasn't, I would feel the same way.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes. And
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Karen. I've loved her since the first season of Potomac. So it is very difficult to watch. I always compare it to almost like an auntie who's just not doing right and you
Hmm.
want her to do right so bad and she's just not. You're just like, oh my gosh, please. Because I can't.
Well, there was one part of the episode that I really enjoyed from her. It was when she decided to give Stacey some feedback about how the rest of the group feels about her.
Yes.
I have never been offered feedback outside of like a workplace, so this was really interesting that she decided to go about it in this way. I thought it was hilarious. Let me offer you some feedback. Here's the feedback. Everyone thinks you're boring. Now, I don't know if you remember this from The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and Teddy, where she was told she
Mm.
was boring. Now, she was pregnant at the time, so she started bawling her eyes out. So it was a much different reaction. So I was pretty proud of Stacey for that. But I mean, do you think Stacey's boring? Let's start there.
I don't think Stacey's boring. I just think that her personality is clearly different from the other ladies. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're more into the drama, into like the rivalry, who's talking about who, all that. But Stacey's more, she's in her own lane. She has her own storyline. She has her own thing going on. And I think they don't, I'm not gonna say all of them, but I think one or two of them that's what they depend on to keep the show going. They
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily have a storyline, so they
Right.
have to be in all the drama. But Stacey's like, I have my own thing going on. I have a job, I'm working, and you could tell she really doesn't need this show. This is just like something to maybe amp her up on QVC
Yeah.
or just something to do on the side,
There's
just
something about her like that I can't see through. And she is giving us stuff. She is telling us
yeah,
stuff, but there's something about her face or demeanor where you just don't see a lot of expression, so it's hard to tell if she is giving us as much as
she's
maybe we
stiff.
want. Yeah, she's stiff, thank you. And like this whole boyfriend thing, who's her best friend, is really giving Jared and Brittany from Real
I
Housewives
was
of
just
Salt
about
Lake
to say
City.
yes.
But like, what do you think of this whole thing? Like, do you really think? Okay, I was kind of annoyed that all the girls think that Stacey must be having sex with somebody else because this man will not be having sex with her. I don't think that that's true.
Hmm.
She's fine, I'm sure. Whether or not she hasn't had sex in a year, 2 months, 5 years, whatever. But do you, I don't know. Do you think that, like, why do you think they're not having sex? I find it a little bit odd. I know he says it's for religious reasons, but like, this whole thing just seems sort of sketchy because for some reason I feel like I heard he was married before. So if you've been married before, I'm a little bit confused. Do you think this is going to go anywhere? Do you think this is even like a real thing, or do you think like, because I feel like Jared Osmond was a little bit added in for the storyline in Salt Lake. So do you think that this man was kind of plugged in as a best friend slash pretend boyfriend?
So here's the thing. I don't necessarily think he was plugged in. I do believe that Stacey thinks she has something special with this man. Now, is he reciprocating that? Does he feel the same way? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. And it's hard because there's so many factors in this. It could be one of those situations where maybe in the past he felt like he moved very fast in his relationships and maybe
Mm-hmm.
he is taking his religion seriously and trying to settle down. I don't know. It's like, and then I also said, I think this was last time on the podcast. I'm like, maybe he's also at a certain age where he feels like companionship is just more important to him and not necessarily the sexual part of a relationship. Maybe just the company that she gives him and doing yoga and going to the gym. Maybe that's enough.
It's just so interesting to think how far she is sort of in another relationship
Yeah.
in her mind because she says she's in love, yet her daughter doesn't even know about the divorce. And I'm curious your opinion. I asked Monty about this from the Mix with Monty. We did an episode last
My
week.
girl.
Girl Monty, and I love her. She's amazing. And so
Hmm.
we had a little bit of a debate on this. She believes that um, Stacey should be telling Arabella about the divorce. She thinks it's really unfair to her that all of this is going on, especially because kids are very intuitive. She's 8 years old. She probably knows what's going on. And then I played a little bit of devil's advocate, even though I fully agreed with her. I said, you know what, though? I think if it were me, as the child, I would have a bunch of questions. The first thing I would do is have a million questions. Where am I going to live? Where am I going to school? What's going to happen? And because Stacey doesn't have those answers, which is why Stacey is saying, I don't want to tell her until we have all that figured out, maybe it is in the best interest of Arabella not to know about it until all those things are figured out. Because if I'm the kid and my parents are
Hmm.
telling me this and I ask a bunch of questions and the answers are I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, me as the kid might feel in flux and not feel settled and not, because we don't have everything figured out as opposed to, okay, we're getting
Hmm.
divorced, but you're going to live in this house, you're not moving bedrooms, you're going to go to the same school. You know what I mean? If that's all figured out. So I'm curious your
Right.
opinion.
Well, I will say that I love to start off these answers with I'm not a parent. So there are
Me
certain
neither.
things that
Fair enough.
there are
What
certain
do we
things
know?
that I just don't understand. Like,
Fair enough.
but in my opinion, just based off of being a kid, I will say that kids are easily confused and they need stability. So if you don't necessarily have all the answers, maybe she's trying to figure that out. So she has a plan on telling her. And so she can answer all those questions because
Right.
she doesn't want to send her kid off to school with like all this stuff on her mind. And then she's like, well, where am I going to live? Like, what's going to happen next? Am I going to have to get up and move schools? Like, am I going to have to get new friends? These are things that you think about as a kid. She's not
Yeah.
necessarily thinking about like all the adult stuff, and she's 8 years old.
Right.
Like, so she does. I believe, we might have opinions, but I believe she should have that room to determine how fast she tells her child or what she tells her child.
Hmm.
That's her child, you know.
What do you
But I do believe at some point she needs to know,
Yeah.
clearly. And I think that she knows that.
I'm sure she does. And again, not to get into another show, but on OC last
Yeah.
week, we saw that there was this rumor that Emily's boys said something negative about Heather. And
Hmm.
Emily was like, there's no way I never say anything negative about Heather around my house or in front of my boys. But like, of course you do, right? Again, neither of us have kids, but we know that that's how it works. Of course they can hear you.
Yeah.
They're 8 years old, which is the same age as Arabella. Of course they're listening. Of course they know what's going on. Of course they can have that sense, right? They can feel the difference in the vibe between the parents, right? Kids know what's going on.
Yeah.
They're a lot smarter than we give them credit for. Um, did you know? Because I just found this out today that Ink, Mia's man, Ink stands for incognito. Did you know this?
No, I thought it was kind of like that tattoo. Like maybe he just has a lot of
Oh,
tattoos. I thought
no, it's
that's what it was really
INC.
about.
It's INC.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I just learned
Everybody's
that
so
today.
creative.
Their situation bothers me, mostly just the
Hmm.
whole Jeremiah thing. We won't get into it too much because I feel like I've already talked about it, and we've all sort of talked about it, but like, yeah, how do you feel about the idea that there's going to be this paternity test, that we're talking about this on
Now,
camera, that
see,
Jeremiah is going to see this one day?
when it comes to that situation, I genuinely feel like she needs to talk to her child about that.
Hmm.
Because the thing is with Mia, and I think there's a big difference in this, like the child should know who his father
Right.
is. You know, that's a totally different issue. I mean, there is a bit of confusion, but it's not on the same level where like he would have to transfer schools or have all these. Well, I mean, he would have some questions, but I just think it's a bigger deal, you know?
Yeah, no, it's a huge deal.
Yeah, I think that's a huge deal, and it's being talked about on TV too.
Yeah, that's the thing. And it's not even just on TV, but like really right next to him, right? And it's just, if it does end up being Gordon, I mean, I think it's kind of crazy we're even talking about it because the impossibility, I mean, the probability of this is so small. But then again, we've seen all those shows like Jane the Virgin and all this. There are miracles, right? It's possible. But
Yeah,
like, because she did like the IUD, or not IUD, sorry, whatever, IUI procedure, it's pretty unlikely, but it's one of those. Did you hear about that Clayton Echard situation from The Bachelor? Did you ever hear this case?
The
It's kind of
Bachelor.
insane. So this
No.
man, he used to be the bachelor, then he's a realtor. He ends up having some oral sex with this woman who was interested in maybe purchasing a home. She ends up scamming him for years. This whole thing just ended recently, where she said that he impregnated her with twins when they never had sex, to the point where he had actually convinced himself, like, is this possible? And it's not even at all possible. But sometimes when somebody is trying to convince you of something so hard, like,
Yeah.
I guess anything is possible. But you should look into that story. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that does sound interesting. Like,
It's a
oh my
complete scam. Yeah,
gosh,
and she's done it to like
what?
multiple men. But anyways, back to Potomac. So we have some new people, like you said, and we have some good
Yeah,
ones. So we just chatted about Stacey. I feel like with Stacey, there's potential for sure. The only thing
I
I sort
do.
of didn't like was closer to the end of the episode where she was sort of talking about how Ashley was making those comments about her man. And I guess she had sort of misinterpreted Ashley's intentions because she's sort of seeing it as like Ashley was saying, like, oh, she's off here with a new man doing this, that, and whatever, doesn't care about her divorce, which is not Ashley's sort of intent. And it's very Housewives coded, the very like minute, you know,
Hmm.
how you meant it sort of things. But I hope, just because that was after the conversation of like, let me give you some feedback, I hope that wasn't her attempt at creating like quote unquote housewife style drama. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because you know what? I was a bit confused by that myself because last week when I seen that, I was like, oh, maybe she's gonna be upset because she wanted to keep that information between her and Ashley,
Hmm.
and she wanted to reveal that herself. Maybe that was like one of those types of things, but it seems like and I still believe that it was that. I feel like that's what really bothered her. But I
Yeah.
think once she talked to the other ladies about it, they kind of like maybe planted this new thing in her head, like, oh, maybe Ashley was just being messy. Maybe her intent was that.
Mm,
And I don't believe that Ashley's intent was to be messy. I think she was just trying to, if anything, say, Stacey's not worried about that. Like she's gonna be okay. She's good.
yeah.
And I think it was meant in a positive way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's how I took it too.
yeah. I do believe that, and I said this on our last episode. I do believe that Ashley has a way of when you tell her something, just going back and telling everybody, and that can be frustrating.
Yeah.
So that's why I was siding with Stacey last week, but this
Hmm.
week it seems like I believe that she knows that wasn't Ashley's intent.
Yeah. And I like how Ashley, like, sort of subtly, but in a sort of way, was like, I've been doing this long enough. You're not going to do that, in a way where she's like, no,
Yeah,
you're not doing that, Stacey. That's not what I meant. No, no, no. That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. And I sort of took that as a, like, she's a seasoned pro. So she's telling her,
yeah.
like, we're not doing this. What else did I want to talk about Jacqueline? Oh, right, Jacqueline. I wanted to talk to you about the whole sidekick thing because it comes up so much in this episode about
Mhm.
whether she is Mia's sidekick. And when she brings up, like, I'm not a sidekick, I have a kid, I have a job, I hold it down. I'm like, you have a kid? I had no idea.
Yeah,
She's
I
like, you're a
believe
mom?
we just seen her kids on the episode before
Really?
this.
Okay, I guess I wasn't
I want to say when they went to
sure.
that Airbnb and they had a party for
How did I
was it
skip this whole
Jacqueline's
scene?
party? Yeah, you might have skipped that, but they had that whole thing. One thing that I will say, I don't think that Jacqueline is necessarily Mia's sidekick, but I do have this whenever they get in a room together, specifically with the men that they're dating, because that's what happened. They were all in this townhouse together. I'm like, so who slept with who? Like,
I find their whole quadruple relationship very
yeah,
weird. Like I really felt for their friendship last year and why their friendship broke up and their sort of whole backstory. But yeah, when it comes to their men, I can't relate and I can't understand it in any real
it's
sense.
like high school,
I don't
this
know.
type of high school, like orgy type of vibe that I get. Like, I
Is that
don't
what you
know.
did
I
in high
can't
school?
explain it. Yeah, well, yeah,
Because I
maybe not
wasn't
high
having a lot
school.
of orgies in high
Yeah,
school
maybe
or
college
any.
because I keep bringing up that they keep showing that picture of her in ink, I
Uh,
believe, like for
back when
their
they were young.
graduation or
Mhm.
prom or something like that. Um, but it's very strange. That's the vibe that I get most of the time. I don't necessarily get sidekick. I'm just like, are you guys still hooking up?
Okay. I guess I saw it as like they do roll as a pair, but I guess I always saw it as her like
Mhm.
the Tom Schwartz to her Tom Sandoval sort of thing. Like I did sort of
Ooh.
see it that way. Even Mia sort of says like it was really rude actually when she's like, "Oh, she needs to sleep in the same room with as me because she's like a kid and I need to take care of her. I need to like treat her like a child." She said something to that effect and I'm like, "Well, but
Ooh.
she's a mom, right? So if Mia is seeing her own friend as sort of like a little pet who needs to be taken care of, that's then they're not in the same spot in their friendship because if that's not how
Yeah.
Jacqueline feels.
I don't know. That's tough. I think I have to see more of it.
Yeah, fair
But
enough.
I do get this energy. I don't know what energy it is, but I do get an energy between them. Um, but I do like Jacqueline.
Mhm.
I think she's a great addition, like for the show. She brings a certain type of drama.
Well, there was the one scene that was a little cringy where she was trying to explain what it is that she brought, and she was just sort of like, "I bring this whole thing," and then she
Yeah.
sort of stands up and she's like, sort of gestures from top to bottom, and everybody's like, "What is it exactly that you're bringing?" All this. I'm bringing all of this, right? Like sort of like she
Yeah.
was trying to do something and
She
it just
didn't have
didn't
to
land.
explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those things where she didn't have to explain it. She's also socially awkward, I feel like
Yeah.
me, because in that moment I would probably not know what to say either, but just stay quiet. I think she would do better just staying quiet and just to keep on with her antics. Like I do like this whole drama between her and Karen. I did like her beef with Mia.
Hmm.
That was really heavy. That was
Yeah, it's heavy.
intense.
Hmm.
And I actually I do have a respect for Mia now because I feel like she's bringing so much to this season. She
She
brought
really
so much
is.
to last season and the season prior as well.
She is, but did you have a chance to listen to her on Carlos King recently? Was it
No,
last week?
no.
It was chock full of tea. Like every sentence was like another thing about like some sexual escapade she had or something about Gordon or something. I was just like, wow, wow, wow.
I want to
And
see it.
it's
Hmm.
quite a lot. I was just like, every moment, like, yes, you're right. She's bringing so much, but I sort of feel, I guess, again, it's hard to relate to her and it's hard to like her because, like, when she says things like, I never loved Gordon and this was always a business relationship, like, I don't know if I really believe that, especially when the other women were like, that's a really long business relationship. But if you really did, if you really mean that, then I don't really respect you. Like,
Yeah, it's
it's
kind
hard
of
to.
sad. It's sad. But you know what? To be fair, um, I forgot what I was gonna say.
What's
But
fair?
to be fair, when it comes to Mia, it's like I think we're seeing the side of Gordon that's always like we're seeing him as the victim. and not
Hmm.
necessarily seeing him in full action, like seeing
Right.
what he's doing behind the scenes, seeing what caused all of this, seeing how he handled this whole situation, because apparently they've been going through this for a while. This
Hmm.
wasn't like, and I think they just chose when to bring this up in front of cameras. But
I
we have
know,
to, we
but
have to take into consideration his side of things and how long this lasted. Because if it was one of those things where she told him like years ago, hey, this isn't working out and I'm going to do this, then, that's sad, Burberry plaid. But at the same time, she's already expressed that to him. So by now you should reach this understanding. And the fact that you just moved into the same building, it's just there are a few factors that has me thinking, I'm like, maybe Gordon is kind of adding on to this and not really making it better.
no, he's not. But it's also like I think they're sort of struggling with how to balance this because on one end, Gordon
Yeah.
still sort of needs help, and so Mia is. They live in the same building, so Mia can sort of help him out and fold his underwear and do whatever. But I feel like, and I understand why Gordon is sort of kind of going back and forth with his feelings on it because she was saying that there's like sometimes they all sleep under the same roof, like Ink, Gordon, and the kids and her. And I was like,
Yeah.
wait, what? And then I don't know if you remember at the reunion last year, like Mia's talking on the phone with Ink, and Gordon's waving in the background, "Hey, Ink, how you doing, buddy?" But then we see on the show, like Gordon hates Ink, right? So I think even Gordon himself is sort of going through the motions. And even though it is maybe a good thing that Mia's in the same building to sort of help him out, it's probably horrible for his mental health.
It's
Like, can you
not
imagine living
good.
in the same building as your ex? How are you ever going to get over
No, I
that?
would hate that. I would
All their new
never.
boyfriends walking in for like a booty call? Like, you'll die.
Yeah.
I would
It's
die.
it's crazy. And the fact that she's like, sometimes me and Ink have to get an Airbnb so I can avoid the conflict. So I'm not too sure what Gordon is thinking. And I'm thinking it's one of those things where I feel like as soon as he doesn't get his way with something, or as soon as he gets upset, he takes it out on Mia,
Right.
and then it's all Mia's fault, and she's the reason for all of this, and she caused all of this. I think what would do Gordon some good is if he downsized, moved out of the place that he's living at, and moved in another building, maybe 2 miles away, 3 miles away,
Hmm.
and I would say getting an assistant,
Ooh, yes.
a life
I agree.
coach,
Yes.
therapy. I think those are the things that will help him, because this is a man that needs to move forward and live his own life. He should be happy as well. He shouldn't be, Mia has clearly moved on. It seems like she brings up Ink every other second, and she
It's
seems
true.
very happy when she brings him up. And
Hmm.
I like that for her. I want to see Mia happy, but I just feel like how it happened, it's unfortunate. And I'm definitely not saying that me is a victim, but at some point he needs to stop also portraying that role and coming into his own life.
It's so complicated because of his mental health issues too. And I feel
Yeah.
like we feel like this in all realms of Bravo because we'll be mad at someone and then they say mental health and we're like, oh, okay. Like Jax Taylor, we're like, oh, I
Yeah.
guess we have to stop. Or Tamara, like, oh, okay, I guess, so it puts us in a weird place. And I can't even imagine being a part of that family because he's going through all these mental health issues.
Mhm.
A lot of it he can't help. So he's probably taking things out on Mia, taking things out of the kids during their marriage, I mean, like all of that, right? And there's only so much you can do when the person isn't well, right? You can't get mad at them for
Yeah.
treating you a certain way when they weren't well. And so it's such a difficult balance. So I do feel for her. Sorry, I'm going to take it back. I do feel for her because I can only imagine what that marriage was like, especially because he was undiagnosed this entire time, I believe, right? So
Yeah.
they didn't even know it was a mental health issue. He was probably just treating her bad.
And I also think it's about, like, even with this whole Tamara and Jat thing, like Tamara coming out, I know everybody was like saying a whole bunch of stuff about it. I
It was a
think
fun day.
the fair thing to do is hold these people accountable for their actions while saying, okay, maybe you might have uh something like a issue with mental health, and maybe you need to do something about that.
Hmm.
But that still doesn't mean that this behavior is okay.
Right, exactly.
I
He
think
just
that's
needs some
the fair way to
accountability,
do it.
I
Not
guess.
piling on them and bringing up the same things that they've already been reprimanded about, but just
Right,
like understanding that they're going to do better and that they're seeking the help that they need. I think that's what it's really about.
right. And not linking your
Yeah.
mental health issue to a
Not
certain
just saying,
behavior.
oh, I have a mental health issue and just continuing to do the same thing.
Right.
Because that's not good for anyone. And at
Right.
that point, there's a thin line between that and being an asshole because
For
you're
sure.
not doing anything about it, you know?
100%. And that was Jack's healer for so long. He was told
Yeah,
for years and years and years, go to therapy, go to therapy, go to therapy. And it's like, well, if you're not even going to let yourself get better, if you're not going to help yourself, then how do you expect everybody else to be in your life, right? So I do have
exactly.
to at least commend Gordon for being on his medications. Now, I don't know the names of any of these medications and I've never been on them. However, I do know that they can make you very sluggish and sleepy and make you feel like empty sort of feeling. And so I'm
Yeah.
actually really impressed that he has stayed on them because I have heard of so many people saying, can't stand the bipolar meds, can't do it. They make me foggy. They make me like I'm not even a person. So again, everybody
Yeah.
has different symptoms, but like I really commend him and appreciate that he is sticking with his regimen and he is doing all those things, right? Like these other people
Yeah.
we've talked about, it's sort of taken them years to get to that place. I commend him for, taking care of his health.
And on top of that, I think when I see him, I can also acknowledge so many great things about Gordon as well. Like he's a great father, I feel. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like he's very hands-on. He's very involved. He wants to know what's going on with his kids all the time. And with that being said, like I can respect that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have
I
one
can
last
definitely
question
respect
for
that.
you. Do
Sure.
you like what do you think about Karen calling Jacqueline a heifer?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was very Southern. It reminded me of my family. Because that word is like I haven't seen it like used on Housewives enough.
Okay, because the
I
only
feel.
time I had ever heard it used was Monique Samuels' husband's mother called Monique a heifer, right? And
Yes.
she had to apologize and it was this whole big thing. So
Because
that
that's
was
a
the only
crazy,
time I've
that
ever
is
heard the word.
crazy. Like when you call somebody a heifer, that's like you're out of pocket.
So
So
it's not okay.
yeah, it's not
Okay.
okay, but between Karen and Jacqueline, I just thought that whole thing was very funny. Um, And then even when Jacqueline started crying, Karen was like, "Well, you can cry till the cows come home. I don't care." And I just loved it. Like that's the Karen that I like to see. Aside from this DUI thing, I don't have a problem with Karen at all.
Well, hopefully there's enough else that she can give us that we do kind of forget about it because like I do like her too, right? Like I've always sort of
Yeah,
enjoyed her too. I hate this aspect of not taking
maybe
accountability.
mid-season
Maybe
we'll get.
mid-season, yeah, because it does keep coming up, right? So
Yeah,
it's on one end like it's coming up so she has to say something to it and if she's going to keep saying I'm not going to talk about it, then I'm going to be annoyed. So maybe everyone needs to stop bringing it up so I can stop being annoyed so that we can move on
mhm.
to something else with Karen. Like I want to see some more stuff with Karen and Ray. Like I love when their relationship is in shambles. That I think that's
Yeah, because I'm
interesting.
like, well, who is Karen with? Because that's how the
Oh my God,
episode
yes.
ends
Right,
by
right, right.
with Mia saying that Karen butt dialed him and she was
Oh my God, I
actually
forgot. Yes.
yeah,
Remind us, right?
Karen's with some other guy, not Ray. So I'm just like, wait, what? And Karen seems very confused by this. But honestly, at this point, I just keep hearing these rumors.
Hmm.
So now I'm starting to feel like they might be true. Like, what is going on? What are you doing when you're at the club and you're not with Ray?
What club? She's like 60 years old.
Because I feel like I want to say last season or the season before that, they were saying that Karen goes out and she parties. Like
Oh, okay, I missed that.
she does it. Like she gets drunk, she has a good time.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like she's never flat out denied blue eyes. So I feel like she's always sort of skirting around these things. So if
Hmm.
she's never really denied it, maybe it is true. I've sort of thought all those things were true because she's never been like, never,
Yeah.
never. Let's go the distance on this private security guard. Go the distance. She's never done that.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought it was true
I
all of
want to
this
see,
time.
like, if it is, I want to know
I want to
and I
know.
want to see it. But it's like, the thing is, I just want her to tell me off camera. Like, I don't want her
Yeah.
to, like, have to go through the. Because I also feel like her and Ray have reached a point in their marriage where it's like she has to live. And it's clear that there's not really a connection there, but
Yeah.
I think it's just very convenient. Like she's not going anywhere, he's not really going
Yeah.
anywhere. They have a lifestyle, they have a home together, they
Yeah.
have, you know. their name is all over this stuff, like properties, like all this stuff. Being what is she, the mayor of Surrey County?
Something of Surrey County, like it's not the Grand
The
Dame of Surrey County,
the
right? It's like
Grand Dame.
no, I don't think so. But whatever it is, she's very proud of
Whatever
that.
position that
Hmm.
she's in, she can't deal with a scandal like that.
No, no, it'll
Yeah,
rock Surrey County for years to come. So
yeah.
we can't have that. Well, Aaron Marcellus, thank you so much for being here. Please tell the people where they can follow you and listen to you and watch you do all the things that you do.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I wish Kay was there. Shout out to Kaya. She also does Bravo I'm Black. That's the spinoff show. And I want to promote that more for her
Do it.
because she records, I want to say 2 times a week, maybe three sometimes. But you can also, if you want to search for our podcast, it's Bravo We're Black. That's everywhere. That's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on Instagram at Bravo Wild Black as well.
Thank you so much, Aaron. See you,
Thank you.
BBs. Thank you for listening. This show is brought to you in partnership with Hurrdat Media. If you want to listen to this show or any other episode, you can do that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to Hurrdat Media's YouTube channel to watch my full-length video podcast episodes. You can follow me on Instagram at I Take Bravo Very Seriously and at The Bravo Investigator. You can follow me on TikTok at The Bravo Investigator. Head to buymeacoffee.com/I Take Bravo Very Seriously to buy me a coffee. Join the Patreon at patreon.com/I Take Bravo Very Seriously for 4 extra mini episodes a month, early episodes, ad-free, Q&A, and exclusive access to bonus content. If you enjoyed the show, please leave me a 5-star review. Love you, BBs. See you next time.
A Hurrdat Media Production.